We're a couple weeks away from the Super Bowl. However, for the Carolina Panthers and Carolina Panthers fans, the offseason has been here. News has started to roll in. It's a little bit slow, but we can start speculating. We can have conversations, and that's what we're going to do today. Talk about the latest news and rumors for the Carolina Panthers. Let's go.
Brace yourself for the ultimate Carolina Panthers experience. Welcome to Two Growls, One Roar, the podcast that hits harder than a Luke Kuechly tackle. We're diving deep into the heart of Panther Nation, bringing you unrivaled passion, insider takes, and pure gridiron fire. From Wilmington to the cosmos, this is your home for the fiercest football talk east or west of Charlotte.
Welcome in, folks, to another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. Number one, if you're in the state of North Carolina, South Carolina, hopefully this weather wasn't too crazy for you. We got nothing down here on the beach, which was expected. But anyways, all those fine folks that are working through these conditions, hope you guys stay safe. Let's get into it, folks. Let's talk about none other than the Carolina Panthers. That's what we are all about here. And we are at the point, it's early in the offseason. I know the season itself is still going. The postseason is still in play. But for Carolina Panthers fans, we start to sit back and twiddle our thumbs a little bit, think about some storylines, some topics of discussion. And today I thought we'd have a little bit of fun talking about some of those potential rumors or things that may be sitting out here that are top of mind. At least they are for me. Now, later this week, we're going to have our mailbag episode coming out. So if you're out there on any of these platforms and you want your question asked, be sure to submit it. I'm going to find a better way here in the future to streamline that submission for you guys. So we'll have a mailbag session. We'll continue our discussion around the roster and building the roster, looking at the free agents, what that's going to potentially be for the Carolina Panthers, and then getting in depth into that draft coverage, because the draft will be here before you know it. So we got to get ourselves prepared, and then we'll continue to dissect this season, some of the players. Hopefully you guys got to listen to and or watch the Bryce Young episode. We're going to do one for J.C. Horn. We're going to do one for Derek Brown. Going to do one for Tetairoa McMillan. Shout out to Tetairoa McMillan, Offensive Rookie of the Year finalist. I think he should win it. Hopefully that's the case, but we'll find out. But we're going to continue to pick the skill position players on offense and defense and take a look at their seasons, recapping what we saw this past year that made the Panthers, have a successful year. But anyways, folks, it's time to get into it. So I think the biggest burning question that I have watching this thing unfold is Carolina Panthers don't have a lot of cap space. They don't have a ton of money to spend, which is wild. When we looked at this a few years ago and stacking out over these years, you said, well, they're going to have this amount of money coming up. But things happen. You sign big contracts in the offseason. You pay your guys. So the Carolina Panthers now going to have some decisions to make internally around the roster. Again, whether it's cutting some guys, and we're going to go through the roster a little bit more, talk about some guys that are potentially on the edge of not being here just based off of the contract. Now, there's the other side of being cut, which is you rework your contract and maybe you take a pay cut because you like the Panthers, you want to remain here, the team likes you, or they say, you know what, it's been great knowing you. We appreciate everything that you've done, but we cannot pay you this amount of money this upcoming season. So that'll be something for us to talk through. But the thing that I wonder as a Panthers fan is, and you see this happen with contracts when you don't have a lot of money, you may look at the cap space and say, well, the Panthers just don't have a lot to spend, which is kind of true, but they also can backload these contracts. Not the best way to do it, but you can backload the money. So you maybe pay $4 or $5 million this year or $3 million and build that thing out. So over the next few years, it ramps up. So it begs the question, like, can the Panthers afford some of these big name guys? Could they trade for a Crosby? Could they bring in a Hendrickson? Can they whoever the next big thing is and attract them here to Carolina and pay them what they need, considering how much we've already invested, again, upper part of the roster, especially the offensive line, a lot of money. So that's something that we'll continue to watch. And like I said, we'll get into that in a little more detail when we look at the roster and start talking through free agency. But here's where, if you are a good organization, a good football team, a good front office, how you overcome the lack of spend. And this is whether you have the money to spend or you don't have the money to spend. It's very basic concept that if you can draft well and you can develop talent internally, guys, it's going to pay for itself because your rookie class is going to be on cheap contracts. You're going to have those guys under contract for a few years. So if you continue to compound and build, not only that, but if these guys leave, who you bring in, talk about compensatory picks in the future, and you just go through this cycle of continuing to find the talent. So I look at this as a really big draft year for the Carolina Panthers. One, because they're picking later, which I've talked about. It's easier to hit on those early picks. But when you start getting later into the first round, you got to hit. You got to hit on your first round talent, no matter who it is. You got to find a way to get there and do that. And so that's one of the things that I'll continue to watch. To me, and a lot of people are mocking, I saw Mel Kiper's latest mock draft. He has CJ Allen out of Georgia as the number 19 pick. I think at 19, it is a perfect spot to draft a starting linebacker. And Carolina Panthers in a good position to do that right now. So I think you could get a proven plug-in playmaker starter right at 19. I don't know that I'm going with edge. And we've talked wide receiver. I don't think that's the case. I think my two positions right now that I would circle are tackle and linebacker. Those are the 1-2 punch, maybe a free safety, but not necessarily. I feel like the need is much bigger. A tier below that, probably I would throw in the edge position. So with all that said, as we talk through this and we hear Dan Morgan at the end of the year talking about having patience for Xavier Legette, having patience for Trevin Wallace, when we talk about this team and the expectations, I think we all know where things sit right now with Jalen Coker stepping into that number 2 spot, XL falling down despite being drafted in the first round and having all the possibility. So here's in my mind where maybe it can finally work out for XL this year. I'm not saying it's going to work out, but where it maybe can work out. His rookie season, he gets thrown into a role that really isn't his, which is a true X number 1. That's not him, not his build is dynamic. Ball to be in that position, fine. But he makes it, pushes through, not a great year, does what he does. You go into the second year, and Jalen Coker may have catapulted him much earlier if Coker had been healthier earlier in the season, didn't have the setback during camp. But you kind of go back into this season, you say, okay, well, you have Tetairoa McMillan, true X, true number 1. He's going to be the guy that'll lessen the load and burden on XL. So maybe then is when you see XL finally take shape and shift into this direction. Like, yeah, that's it. Didn't happen. A lot of regression, still not showing us enough for a guy who was drafted in the first round. And I get it. He's on the edge of the first round. Second round, I really don't care. You're talking about a guy that by all accounts and a lot of boards and prospects, a second round talent. If you want to put him down a peg, still a second round talent, still a guy that should be producing in the NFL that cannot find his lane, cannot find his groove. So here, going into year 3, should the Carolina Panthers have patience with him, as they are saying right now? But let's not forget, Carolina Panthers did a really good job of bluffing on picking T-Mac last year. It felt like edge, but I think that's because we as fans and the media push the narrative that it had to be an edge, and they go in that direction. But should they hold steady and they don't trade him away, which I'm not ruling out him being traded. You don't get anything, like you really don't get anything in return for him. But maybe someone takes a gamble. I don't know. Patrick Mahomes needs a weapon. Jackson Dart, whoever needs somebody to fill in, and they think they can take this guy, mesh and meld him into something, and finally get him playing top caliber football. Maybe that is the case. But should he stay here? And the big question we're going to have this offseason is kind of filling in that third spot. And we talk about a guy that can take off the top of the defense. We're going to look at Jimmy Horn Jr. I feel like he ran more horizontally than he did vertically this season. And the vertical speed is what he has to get open, take it over the top. So maybe another season with him. This is where it gets very interesting, because another offseason for him, Does he develop and become more that target and reliable weapon, and XL get knocked down another peg because we do need kind of that slot target option that's available? But should XL finally find his footing, maybe it's because he is in the role of the third option, which doesn't give you a lot as far as targets and availability and being on the field, especially if you're running multiple tight end sets. You're limiting the number of wide receivers that are going to be on the field in that situation. And so it's like your snap count's naturally not going to be the same as if you were a number 2 or a number 1 target in the NFL, but maybe that's good. Maybe that's okay. And that's the space that he needs to finally get into the spot that he needs to be in. And again, I'm a fan of his. I'm not going to sell out on him until he's gone, until he's done, whatever that the case is, whether he retires, he's traded, he's a free agent, and he walks out and that's it. Whatever the case, he gets cut. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen this year for XL. I think it's a very big year for him, but maybe if he does find his groove, it's that exact reason that he was able to go into a kind of a third role that didn't have a lot of pressure. Maybe he does take some time to get it together this season, this off season that is, and finally take a step forward. So it's a big year for XL. It's going to be one of the storylines we'll watch. Are they going to try to pick someone up in free agency? There's probably some notable names. I don't think you're going to get a big splash guy. There's some guys that could come in and be competitive. I just don't know how much the Carolina Panthers want to spend on the wide receiver position right now. That they're pretty low as far as a collective unit. You're going to pay Jalen Coker, give him some kind of an extension. They'll still be on the lower end compared to other teams in the NFL because you have T-Mac on the rookie deal. You have XL on the rookie deal. Like, it's a very young core, potentially Bryce and Tremaine. You have Jimmy Horn Jr., like we said. So we'll see where that pans out. Now, one of the things is we talk about rumors and possibility and what could or could not be for me, and it kind of started simmering a little bit this past year. There's nothing behind this. This is just me as a fan that I would love to see this happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but how about a reunion of DJ Moore back here in Carolina? Like, why not? Why not come back to the team that drafted you? Very reasonable as far as contracts compared to a lot of other guys that, could be filling in that. And that is, like, as we talk about XL, that could be your third option. And I don't know that you put him as the third option. There's a lot you can do with him. And you talk about a group of DJ Moore, T-Mac, as well as Jalen Coker. I'd put that wide receiver room up as a collective unit as top 5 in the NFL. I really believe that those guys, when healthy, if they can stay healthy, would be it. And DJ Moore can take the top off the defense. We saw it so many times with him and his connection with Williams. I think there are pieces of his game that we desperately need. Now, I don't know what you give up. I don't know how you make it happen. I don't think it happens. And if I'm the Bears, I think that's a dumb decision to make. But we can always hope and dream and wonder in these scenarios, like, what if we did have him back in the Carolinas? Could that happen? And for me personally, I think I would be excited. And we talk a lot about the wide receiver position and where that sits for the Panthers and draft needs. I'm a firm believer that the tight end position, although I will give, a hat tip to some of you guys that highlighted that tight end really hasn't been a big thing for Pete Carroll and some of Pete Carroll's offenses, and that's where Dave Canales comes from. So is a tight end really that beneficial for the Carolina Panthers? And I do think it is. I still do, even though as a collective unit, I think roughly 500 receiving yards together, which is better than what it has been. It's progress over the Ian Thomas days. Like, we are slowly getting there. And part of what I was going to plug with this is I know some of you are like, can we just convert XL to tight end? I don't think so. At least not right now. You got to do a little bit more to be able, and the pass blocking and run blocking may not be 100% to put him there. I don't think he's enough. That's just me. No, he's got some size on him, but I don't think there's enough there. But looking at a reliable tight end target, that's what we're going to discuss as we look at the draft. And also on top of that, look at free agency. I know you have Tommy Tremble. I know you have JT Sanders who's coming off an injury. You like what you saw out of Mitchell Evans. Like, those are all good. They're good players. They're starters. You can plug them in, but you don't have a showstopper, a top-notch tight end. And I'm not saying every position on your roster is going to be top 10, top 5, but you need to be in the middle of the pack. And I think, like, when you start looking at it, folks may or may not want to hear this, but for me personally, my little flag is going off if you could possibly bring in Kyle Pitts. And I understand he has not been dominant. He almost clipped 1,000 yards this past year. So when I start to get my mind going, it's like, what if Kyle Pitts could come in here? Again, we're going to dive deeper into that free agent class later this week as we just start looking at each of the positions and guys that could be here. I think he's going to get paid. I think he's going to stay in Atlanta. That's just me. But why? Why not start to see what could be with the tight end position? So another storyline for us to watch, at least as I record this right now, the Ejiro Evero openings primarily is the Raiders. No Steelers picked up McCarthy. So I don't think Evero is going to be gone, which means you should have this same unit on the defensive side of the ball intact, coaching staff-wise, heading into next year, which to me is a positive. Like, I don't think that's a negative for the Carolina Panthers to be carrying that over into next season. So positive news there. Anyways, folks, I think that's going to do it for today's episode. Of course, you guys know we will be back with more content like we always are, getting this off season underway. This is Carolina Dad.